All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started today. Again, thank you for your patience. I do have the territory vice president calls at 9:30 every morning. Sometimes I just run a couple of minutes over. So I apologize for starting things a little bit late today. Um, if you would put your name into the chat box, that would be great. That way Sandra can keep track of attendance. If you have the ability to turn on your cameras, we always appreciate smiling faces instead of black boxes, as I like to say. We'll go ahead and jump in, though. It's crazy to me that we're only 11 days out from the beginning of the annual enrollment or the open enrollment season for the under 65 space. And I know many of you are going to be heavily focusing on that. But before I go there, I want to spend just a couple of minutes on a few updates, specifically in the Medicare space, because there are a number of you that are in Medicare. And for those of you who are not yet in Medicare, you will eventually be in Medicare. I'm pretty certain of that. I don't think we have any veteran long-term agents in our territory that did not eventually get into Medicare. Medicare, just like the under 65 space, is going through an extreme amount of pressure and volatility this year. There's a lot of changes that are happening that I think it's important to kind of understand. And so I want to take a few minutes and just kind of walk through a few of those changes with you, make sure that you're well versed and ready to chat a little bit with clients about what's happening and what this kind of looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some slides that I had used in my plan review workshop that I had walked through. And I think this kind of goes over some of the pressures and the things that we're dealing with as agents, carriers are dealing with, and clients are dealing with, candidly. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and just kind of walk through this a little bit. So just so everybody is aware, because you may run into consumers that have questions around this, we're now in the annual enrollment period for Medicare, which runs from 10/15 to 12/7. And during this period, we can make changes to the Medicare Advantage plans or standalone prescription drug plans for a January 1st effective date. There's also a secondary window from January 1st to March 31st of 2026, where we can make a one-time plan to change to a consumer's Medicare Advantage plan. So that's called the open enrollment period for Medicare. It's kind of confusing because you have AEP, which happens during the fourth quarter for Medicare, and OEP, which happens during Q1. And then you have another OEP that's specific to the under 65 health insurance space. So I just think it's worth mentioning that. Couple of other things that I just wanted to mention. There is a lot of pressure on Medicare this year, and there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, the government is mandating that insurance companies cover more of the costs of things like expensive medications. For 2026, there's a $2,100 out-of-pocket maximum or cap on a consumer's out-of-pocket cost. And so insurance companies are obviously trying to navigate that and understand that. There's also over 10,000 people a day who are turning 65. They expect that to double over the next 6 years. So this opportunity continues to roll, and a lot of people need help and guidance, but that's putting pressure on the system. There's pent-up demand coming out of COVID. Every carrier has cited that they had pent-up demand that happened during COVID, which is now kind of playing itself out. People are getting those more elective type surgeries done, or the things that weren't, life-threatening. They're now coming out and getting those done. There's also some legislative changes and star rating changes that are impacting the profitability of the carriers. This is kind of an interesting dynamic as well because in the Medicare space, these Medicare Advantage plans all have up to a 5-star rating. And some of the carriers' ratings have been reduced by the federal government, which causes less money to flow to them for every member that they have on the plan. And so that's impacting things. And then we have the DOJ investigations that are going on with Medicare carriers and providers. So this stuff is kind of a backdrop on what's going on inside of the Medicare space. We are also seeing some other things begin to happen. I don't know if you guys saw the news last week, but we did have the Mayo Clinic basically announce that they're no longer going to take Medicare Advantage plans at any of their locations. I've seen it from a couple of sources now that they're only going to be working with traditional Medicare and Medicare supplement plans. So I also think it's kind of important to understand, like, what are the differences here? And so had kind of put some thoughts together that I just wanted to share with you guys, because when somebody does come into Medicare, they have the option of, going the more traditional path with a Medicare supplement plan and a standalone prescription drug plan. or they have the option of kind of going the newer path, which is defined as Medicare Advantage plans. And so I had to put together a few talking points that I thought were worth sharing with you today, just to kind of walk through this a little bit more. Um, I'm gonna share my screen again here with you just to kind of go through these. Now, I will tell you these are not for public distribution. This is not compliance approved. This is my verbiage and my way of kind of explaining things. And so I'd taken a couple of minutes. I actually did this early this morning as I was kind of just thinking through the nuances and changes. Because of some of these changes with Medicare Advantage, I do have some higher income, higher net worth clients and some individuals saying, hey, I want to think about going to a Medicare supplement plan, either back to a Medicare supplement plan or maybe to a Medicare supplement plan for the first time in my life. And what does that look like? And so I think we're going to have more of those conversations as we see some of these pressures continue to exert themselves on the business and the industry. So um, this is kind of a high level overview that I'm just going to walk through, and it might give you some additional context on some of the things that we've been talking about. Let me get rid of this very quickly and jump to here. Um, okay. So as I mentioned, under Medicare, there are two ways to receive your benefits. You have that more traditional path where you're taking advantage of Medicare Part A and Part B, and you're purchasing a Medicare supplement policy and then a standalone prescription drug plan. That's kind of the old school path. And then you have the newer path, and I say new, it's been around for 22 years now, but it's to take advantage of a Medicare Advantage plan. Um, and there are pros and cons to both paths. And so through this, I'm just trying to better articulate the differences and some pressures that have, I think developed on both sides of the equation. So we're going to start off by talking about traditional Medicare with a Medicare supplement and a standalone Part D prescription drug plan. If you think about it on this path, the government is internally administering Medicare Part A and Part B, and they're providing approximately 80% of the benefits through the federal government program. A consumer then buys a Medicare supplement plan and a Part D prescription drug plan to fill the gaps. This type of coverage is more expensive, but it typically provides very low out-of-pocket costs, no provider network restrictions, and less involvement of an insurance carrier to manage your care. Monthly premiums on these plans are usually age-based, and they typically do increase over time. I ran some quick numbers. At age 65 here in Northern Indiana, the average cost of a Medicare supplement plan can range from $150 to $200 per month per person, depending on which carrier and which plan you would select. And then you have the cost of a Part D prescription drug plan, which the average is about $50 a month. So for somebody to go into a Medicare supplement at age 65, they're looking at a minimum, $200 to $250 a month. There might be some scenarios where it's a little bit less expensive than that because there are some drug plans that are as little as what, $8 or $9 this year. I don't think there are any more. Well, there are a couple of $0 plans as well. So it is possible to push that down a little bit lower, but you're looking in that range from a cost perspective. Um, if you're trying to go to a Medicare supplement plan after age 65, you usually have to qualify medically to purchase that plan. And candidly, some people just can't qualify because of adverse health. I ran some numbers here for a client that I was working with. So for a healthy 79-year-old male, the cost ranges from $200 a month to $477 a month, depending on plan and carrier. And if that same 79-year-old male is unhealthy, the cost could range from $572 a month to $643 a month, plus the cost of the prescription drug plan. So for an unhealthy 79-year-old, it can get really, really salty. I mean, we're talking what, seven, eight, maybe $9,000 a year in premium that they could be paying to have that Medicare supplement plan with a standalone prescription drug plan. I would also mention that some providers prefer clients to be on these types of programs because there's less active management of claims by the insurance carrier. While this makes it easier to file and get paid on claims, it also contributes to the monthly premium costs and the rate increases that are happening on those plans. So, from a provider perspective, we are seeing some providers say, oh, we'd like all of our clients to be on a Medicare supplement plan. And my response to that is, of course you would. It's very easy to get paid. You're not jumping through a lot of hoops from a network or a pre-authorization perspective. And candidly, the consumer is the one who's paying the cost of the monthly premium. And so that's not a huge concern to the provider community. As I mentioned, we have recently seen some providers to include the Mayo Clinic decide that they're only going to accept Medicare supplement plans. And while this change has not impacted a lot of local providers, it has caused some of our clients to inquire about moving to Medicare supplement plans, regardless of the cost or rate increase realities. The biggest issue, I think, with these Medicare supplements is number one, the upfront cost, but number two, the rate increases that we are seeing. And just from personal experience, we have seen our clients experience 18% to 25% rate increases annually over the last 12 to 18 months, and we expect those increases to continue. I've heard rumors that United Healthcare could assess up to 30% rate increases on many of their Medicare supplement clients in early 2026. So while this plan is awesome from a coverage perspective, it's very simple to use. Providers really like it because there's not a lot of hoops that they have to jump through because it's not actually managed care by anyone. They're just paying the claims as they bill them. I do think the cost on this type of a product is oftentimes cost prohibitive. I think it's also worth mentioning that if you're working with clients who are experiencing a plan exit where their plan is being terminated for 2026, they typically have an opportunity to go into a guaranteed issue Medicare supplement plan, regardless of their health, because of that cancellation. Now, that being said, insurance companies don't necessarily want guaranteed issue business on Medicare supplements, right? Because they cannot control how bad or how good the risk is that they're receiving. And many times people who are willing to go from a $0 or $20 a month premium on a Medicare Advantage plan, and they say, oh yeah, I'm willing to spend $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 a month. The reason they're willing to spend that is because they've got serious health issues going on. And so oftentimes those guaranteed issue situations are difficult for the insurance company. We're seeing some insurance companies react to that. We saw Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Michigan in particular, who really backed down their commissions on Medicare supplement plans. They don't want that business coming out of Medicare Advantage plans and into Medicare supplement plans on a guaranteed issue basis. They just simply don't want it. Some carriers will not allow you to sell certain Medicare supplement plans on a guaranteed issue basis. And in some states and some carriers, they won't pay any commissions for that. So you need to be cognizant of those types of realities if you're moving people, from a Medicare Advantage plan to a Medicare supplement plan and not taking them through underwriting, using their guaranteed issue rights. So before I pivot over and talk about Medicare Advantage plans, does anybody have any questions about these talking points or the thoughts I've laid out here? Sandra, there's nothing here that you see that I said inaccurate, is there?
No, that was all pretty accurate. It's just a matter of doing the math and knowing what their needs are, knowing what they're comfortable with, which way you're going to go.
Exactly. So Medicare Advantage plans, as I mentioned, have now been in existence for about 22 years. And if you think about the way that a Medicare Advantage plan works is on this path, the government subcontracts the administration of benefits out to a private insurance company of the consumer's choice. These Medicare Advantage plans usually cover both medical and prescriptions under one plan. Many plans include additional benefits like vision and dental and hearing and gym memberships and over-the-counter benefits. Typically, those additional benefits are not included on a Medicare supplement plan in most scenarios. Sometimes there's a couple of them, but not all of them. The premiums on Medicare Advantage plans are certainly less expensive and can be as little as $0 in many areas. However, the customers have more copays and cost sharing as medical needs arise, with some sort of a maximum out of pocket that caps their annual cost at a fixed number. Most of the plans in our areas have out of pocket maximums that range from $3,700 to $9,300, depending on which plans you choose. That's kind of the basic range that those out-of-pocket maximums are in. As you look deeper at these Medicare Advantage plans, the monthly premiums on these plans are not age-based and they do not increase with age. Now they could increase over time, but today, most of these plans, there's many plans in every market today for about $0 a month. And then there are some that are a little bit more expensive. So there are some that are $20, $30, $40 a month, up to $50 a month. I think most of the Medicare Advantage plans are somewhere between 0 and 50 in the markets we serve, though, per month. People can switch to a Medicare Advantage plan or change their Medicare Advantage plan every year during the annual enrollment period or the open enrollment period, regardless of their current health. Medicare Advantage plans do include more active management by the insurance company offering the plan. So
What do
that's
you
one
mean
of
by
the
that?
What's that?
Explain a little bit about what you mean by that.
Well, what I listed out here is I said cost containment features like pre-authorization, provider network, step therapy, risk-based contracting, and predictive analytics are used to manage the care and the cost of the treatment. So the insurance company is actively managing the care and the cost. So if someone's in a Medicare Advantage plan, and the doctor says, "Hey, we want to do a spinal fusion," the insurance company might say, "Hey, before we spend 100 or $150,000 on a major back surgery, we'd like you to go through physical therapy. We'd like you to do some steroid injections. We'd like to try some other less expensive alternatives to try to avoid that massive claim, and that not just the claim, but the massive risk associated with a claim of that magnitude." Um, I read an article last night that said that they just did a study of Medicare, and over the last couple of years, there were over 200,000 back surgeries that were technically not needed, that were actually done and billed to Medicare. It's not that they were fraudulently billed to them; they actually did the back surgery, but technically those back surgeries weren't really needed. They might have been, they weren't for bulging discs or ruptured discs. They were just for, low back pain and discomfort. And so, if an insurance company is managing this a little more, sometimes there's going to be conflict between them and the provider. The provider saying, "I think we want to do this and we want to, do this particular procedure." And the insurance company might say, "Hold on, we've got a process that we need to work through here of eliminating less expensive or less invasive procedures before we get to the point of, approving a massive spinal fusion," right? So that's kind of the active management that happens inside of a Medicare Advantage plan. Now, I will say this can be frustrating for a consumer and for providers, right? If the insurance company is the one dictating it. I would also say, though, that there are studies out there that show that this level of active management not only reduces costs, but provides better outcomes for patients as well. Those same 200,000 surgeries that were done on original Medicare that I read about last night, if they were on a Medicare Advantage path, the insurance company might have stopped some of those from happening before and maybe led to a better outcome for the patient. And there's arguments on that side of the equation as well. While most Medicare Advantage carriers do offer broad nationwide access, PPO and HMO Medicare Advantage options, there are some high value providers like the Mayo Clinic that have recently decided to stop accepting Medicare Advantage plans and only accept those Medicare supplement plans. While there is inflationary pressure on all Medicare insurance products, the rate increases on Medicare Advantage plans have been pretty minimal in the last number of years. They've stayed pretty stable to the point that we still have $0 Medicare Advantage plans available in most markets. So, as I've always said with Medicare, I think our job as an agent is to educate the consumer and help them understand what options are available to them. I don't think we want to push or steer them either direction. I think we want to explain to them what their options are and help guide them towards the right solution for them. Some clients are in a position that they would like to have that broader access. They like access to the Mayo Clinic. They want to make it easy on their provider to bill and get paid. And they don't mind paying a much higher premium for those luxuries, right? Other clients simply can't afford to or don't want to pay the premium for that, and they're comfortable being in more of um, an actively managed type product, which is what Medicare Advantage is. I would also say that any other form of insurance that you look at or health insurance, whether it's ACA, individual plans, group insurance through an employer, Medicaid, the VA, like all of these other are more actively managed type products, right? Where the insurance company is managing the care, trying to keep the cost down, negotiate network discounts with the providers. They're trying to keep, manage costs and make a profit in the whole thing. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this equation, but I do feel like this conversation around, do I need to be on a Medicare Advantage plan or do I need to be on a Medicare supplement plan, is continuing to evolve. And I'd say it's almost like the extremes are getting more and more extreme, right? The Medicare supplement plans are getting more expensive, but now there's also providers that will only accept them. So that's kind of pushing that extreme. Medicare Advantage has its own extremes as well. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys a high level overview of this. Go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, I was going to say just a couple thoughts, especially for somebody that's brand new to Medicare, you're providing the education. Many times you think about these are folks that are coming off of a group insurance plan. A Medicare Advantage plan works very similarly to how their group insurance works. They'll have co-pays, they'll have out-of-pocket expenses, there's a network, all those types of things. But if it's somebody who maybe is dealing with some active health issues and they're brand new going on Medicare for the first time, I advise them that, it is easier to start with a Medicare supplement if that's what they want to do. And then later on, but I let them know their premiums are going to go up. And at that point, that may be the time to switch over to a Medicare Advantage. So it's easier to go from a Medicare supplement to a Medicare Advantage. It's not always possible to go the other way.
That is correct. So good points. Does anybody have any questions around that? I know we're not doing Medicare training today, but I just felt like I'm having more and more conversations about the differences. And I'd say some of these differences have changed just in the last week or two.
So question, do we get FYCRs on non-commissionable Medicare supplement plans? I'm not assuming.
No, so FYCRs, first year commissions rewarded, are directly tied to first year commissions. And if there's no first year commissions, there's no FYCRs. So
And Donna will explain that birthday rule at a different time that goes into effect on January. So that's
we're
too
still
much to get into right now.
Donna, we're still figuring that out. Honestly, as are the carriers. So there is a new law going into place in Indiana. It's not in Michigan for 2026, which basically says someone can change their Medicare supplement plan during their birthday month on a guaranteed issue basis. Again, though, it sounds like it's something that we have that Michigan doesn't have. I just don't think the downstream impact of that lands in a good place. If we start allowing sick people to buy more insurance just because it's their birthday, um, like that's just counter to how insurance works, right? The whole idea behind insurance, and I try to get this across to my clients, is that there's a core fundamental concept in insurance, and I don't care whether we're talking about homeowners insurance, auto insurance, life insurance, health insurance, Medicare, but that core reality is it is difficult to buy more insurance after you need it, right? You can't buy more homeowners insurance after your house burns down. You can't buy more auto insurance after you total your car, and you can't buy more life insurance on your spouse after they're dead. So those are just common insurance realities that we're bumping up against with a lot of the things that we try to help guide our clients through. So, and then when the government creates environments where people can upgrade or increase their coverage after they're sick, that creates some problems. I mean, that sounds like, oh yeah, the government's helping consumers here, but are they really? If that insurance company has to raise their rate by 30 or 40% or pull out of the market and not offer product, like I think that's where some of these, regulatory decisions are going to lead over time. So pros and cons and everything. I think as advisors, I just want to make sure you all understand it and start like figuring out how to explain it to clients, because what we do at our core is we teach and train things to clients. We help them understand their risk. We help them understand their options and hopefully help them land in a good place to protect their assets.
Yeah. Are we having fun yet? Yes.
Exciting
Let's
stuff.
move on.
Maybe I'm just an insurance nerd, but it is exciting stuff. So, all right. So, any other questions about Medicare before we move on? All right. So, I want to talk about a couple of things before we jump into ACA. One is live transfers. I would encourage all of you, if you are not plumb full of appointments, you should have your live transfers turned on. Under 65 for sure for new agents. If you're certified in Medicare, I'd turn your Medicare live transfers on as well. Yesterday, we had about 1,429 live transfers that came through the Medicare side of the business. Just so you're aware, we have two kinds of live transfers, both on the Medicare side and the under 65 side. We have branded live transfers, which are provided by health markets and generated by health markets. And then we have what are called affiliate or non-branded live transfers. We're just buying those from outside vendors. Yesterday, our take-in rates on branded leads were about 83%, and on the affiliate leads, it was about 59%. The branded leads do close at a higher percentage, but they're also more expensive, to generate and to get, because they are, obviously calling into the health markets brand and specifically seeking a health markets agent. So my point with that is that an 83% take-in rate on branded leads, that means 17% of the leads nationwide were just not taken and fell to the ground. At a 59% take-in rate on affiliate leads, that means what? 31% of the leads weren't taken and just fell to the ground. So my point is, if you're in a position to start taking leads and you want people to talk to, I'd turn your leads on as often as you can and take as many of them as you can. We want to get as close as we can to 100%, because if we're generating leads, that are just falling to the ground. That's not very beneficial for anybody, right? I do want to show you guys something, and I actually captured this screenshot this morning from our territory call, and this gives you some okay, so Stefan said, is anyone getting a lot of, sorry, I need to get to that. Is anyone getting a lot of third-party Medicare live transfers about a food card that the consumer is supposedly eligible for? The answer is yes. When you take those third-party vendor or affiliate leads, there are nuggets in there, but you're going to have to weed through some things. Those particular leads are generated or sold to us by third-party vendors. We try to shut them down when they're doing things that are illegal, like leading with a food card that people might be eligible for. But we don't always have the ability to shut every single one of those down. And so some of these nefarious lead vendors are using things like food cards to capture a consumer's interest and then passing them along to us. Now, I would say if you're running into those, I think the first question that we have to ask is, are you eligible for Medicare and Medicaid? So are you dual eligible? Do you have the Medicare platform and the low income state Medicaid program? Because there are some programs out there that include flex cards and food cards and things like that for people that are dual eligible. But that's the first place I would go with that. And if that person says, no, I'm only eligible for Medicare, I'm not also low income, then I think it's perfectly appropriate to explain, well, there's probably not a food card available, but there might be some additional benefits. Could we take a look at things for you and see what plan might be appropriate for you? So I think you can pivot from that, and there's a lot of ways to work on that. I'll tell you, with any of the live transfers, one of the other things that I've heard from a lot of top producers across the country is that as they're taking live transfers, you got to think about it through the lens of this person is on the line for a reason. There's something there, whether it's a food card that they were promised by some nefarious lead vendor, or they're looking for their insurance card, or something else has happened with their insurance, or they need insurance, whatever the case is, they're on the phone for a reason talking to you. And I think one place you can really start with things, especially in the under 65 space, is okay, so you have this issue. Is there a reason you didn't call your agent on this? Oh, you don't have an agent? Okay, well, I can help you with all of this, but to do that, I need to be your agent of record. So we've got a process that we need to move through to make me your agent of record. Once I become your agent of record, then I can help you with this particular issue, and I can be your trusted advisor for this next open enrollment and moving forward. So there's a way to pivot within those, even if somebody's not calling to say, hey, I want to buy insurance for the first time and it is just a lay down deal. There's other ways to work through helping that client, becoming the agent of record, helping them understand their gaps and holes, and cross-selling. So hopefully that makes some sense. Let's see here. I'm just looking at the questions again. Okay, so Maggie, I'm reaching yours. You should be able to just search the phone number, like Stefan said, and pull it up very quickly. My understanding is that those are hitting your system like almost instantaneously. So it's a matter of doing a quick search in your CRM for that phone number, and that'll bring up then the live transfer, and then you can start adding information to it and working through the process. So hopefully that's helpful. So I'm going to share my screen again and just show you guys the math. And this is specific to under 65 and over 65. And this is just like a raw cost deal. We don't see these kind of numbers very often, but so we're looking at Medicare here at the top, AEP. So the cost of marketing. So to get one live transfer to come in, we spend about $225. Now the agent is responsible for, I forget what it is, 36 or 37 or $38 of that cost out of your lead connect. But Health Markets is subsidizing the rest of that cost of that lead. And then affiliate leads are much lower cost at about $65 for each lead. If we look at our overall taken rates over an extended period of time, we run about 92% on the branded and about 58% on the affiliate. So that means the number of leads that came in that were taken by an agent, right? That's what the taken rate is. And so we look at the cost per taken based on these percentages. So for a branded, it's about $245. For an affiliate, it's about $112. And then we actually have our sales that kick in after that. Got a couple of people coming in. I'm going to let in. So when you actually break it down in our closing ratios, kind of figure into this, we do have a much higher closing ratio on branded leads than we do affiliate leads. But the cost per sale ends up at 941 for a branded sale, and those affiliate leads are about $659. Like that's raw cost to the company, right? This is not your cost because the company is heavily subsidizing this top number right here for you. But this is overall cost. And so if you look at $1 million of investment at a corporate level on this, you can see that we'd get about 1,063 branded if we dumped $1 million into advertising and brand and for that. And for affiliate, we'd get about 1,500. So some people ask me, why don't we just dump the affiliate leads and take all the money we're spending on affiliate leads and put them into branded leads? Which on the surface, it seems like that might be a good strategy. But once you start understanding the cost structures, the take-in rates, the closing percentages, the cost per sale, and then what $1 million of investment would actually net us out, those numbers obviously on the affiliate side become pretty compelling as far as the number of new sales that we can get off of $1 million investment. And then the under 65 is different metrics, but similar outcome, right? Branded leads are $152 a piece, affiliate are 70. You can see what our take-in rates are. You can see what our closing percentages are. A little, pretty similar to what they are in Medicare. And then you can see $1 million of investment, what it would net us out on branded and what it would give us on affiliate. So I think, the corporate strategy to this point has been these are both viable channels to obtain new clients and to get new business into the system. I think the branded leads feel better from an agent perspective because you're closing a higher percentage. They're typically calling in because of the health markets brand. They might have a little bit more context and understanding of who you are. But you still have to remember that those affiliate leads, there's still a lot of sales inside of those, even though you've got to weed through some. And if you look at this, a blended average of about a 20% closing ratio on these leads, that means about 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 10 that we're actually closing a sale on, right? So you got to keep that in mind. Out of every 10 leads that you take under 65 or over 65 that are live transfers, you know, on average, 8 of them are not going to turn into a sale, and 5 or 6 of them might feel like absolute trash from a quality perspective. That's very possible. And so I think sometimes understanding the math behind them makes us better able to mentally have the mental fortitude to work through the bad leads to find the ones that are available. We do have a lot of agents within our organization that are closing 30, 35, even 40% on some of these leads. I think that's a matter of just being very good on the phone and having a good process and being able to take some of those leads that maybe didn't start out as much and turn them into something. There is a knack and a talent for that, I think, that some agents have. So I would encourage you though, I don't think for a new agent, anything that you do, I think you've got to be working on the slow burn. You got to be working on your marketing. You got to be working on your walk and talks and your networking and building your local brand. And all those things are wonderful. But that stuff is much more of a slow burn, right? If you need business coming in now, you got to be working live transfers. And our experience says that most agents need to be taking 25 to bare minimum of 25 to 30 live transfers a week really get to a point where they're starting to execute transactions and becoming proficient at the work that we do. So I did want to just provide that commentary on live transfers and let you guys know we're never going to be at a place where it's every single live transfer that comes in is just a lay down sale. It just doesn't work that way. I've been in the business half my life, 24 years, and it's never worked that way. I will say these are the highest quality leads we've ever seen though through these live transfers. Sandra?
I was gonna say, wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, it would be.
Every call is a sale.
But honestly, they wouldn't salespeople would not be as necessary if it was that easy, right? You could pay somebody $15 an hour to be an enroller and just enroll if they were laydowns. This is something where we have to engage with the consumer. We have to listen. We have to understand their situation. We have to ask a lot of questions. We have to do a good fact finder. We have to try to help them. We have to have a servant's heart, and then we have to, find the right product that's going to match up with the needs that they have, and try to protect them as best we can. So I think it's just a much more complex transaction than just order takers, and that's why we have the opportunity that we do in front of us. So, questions about live transfers before we move on? All right. I'm going to spend the last 20 minutes just talking about ACA and maybe more specifically short-term insurance. 11 days, we've got the under 65 open enrollment period beginning. I will tell you a lot of things are up in the air right now. Number one, we don't know what's happening with these federal subsidies. And if you guys are watching the news at all, you understand that the federal government is currently shut down And I think it's the second longest shutdown we've ever been in. And a huge part of this is around these government subsidies for individuals in the individual market. The Biden administration passed the legislation, I think 3 years ago, back in 2022, that created these enhanced government subsidies. And we spent tens of billions of dollars, you know, paying more out in government subsidies to help offset the cost of insurance for many consumers. That legislation, when it was built, was set to sunset or go away December 31st of 2025. So right now, that's what we're operating under. I will say though, the Democrats and Republicans are battling right now over this, and they both really planted their feet and dug their heels in. I think Republicans don't believe that the billions of dollars of enhanced subsidies are worth it. I think the Democrats are fighting to keep those intact, and so we'll see who wins or if they end up somewhere in the middle. Um, my biggest hope is that they wrap this thing up and figure out what the heck's going on, at least in the next week or so that we can start to prep for what's going to happen come November 1. I will tell you, I'm not planning to run appointments on November 1st and maybe the 2nd, just because I want to give it a little bit of time for things to settle out and to give myself some time to get into Health Sherpa and the quoting and enrollment tools and just begin to analyze what carriers, what products, what subsidies are we looking at. Um, Whether or not the enhanced subsidies go away, there's two levels of subsidies. There's the basic subsidies, which always exist. And even if these enhanced subsidies go away, there will still be significant government subsidies for the vast majority of the population, right? But if the enhanced subsidies go away, those government subsidies will shut off if a family reaches 400% of the federal poverty level. So anybody who's over 4 times the federal poverty level would not get any government assistance in the form of federal subsidies if the enhanced subsidies go away. But there's still going to be subsidies that are there. And if you remember it all from your FFM certification, the way that they determine these subsidies each year is an algorithm that the government built. It's very complex, but it works off of the cost of the second lowest silver plan in each geography. That's kind of what they call the benchmark plan, and then the subsidies get calculated off of that. So that's why in any given area, you've got this base insurance premium rate that the insurance companies are charging, but then it depends on what carriers are in that particular market and what plans they have and which plan ends up being the second lowest silver plan. That then determines what kind of subsidies people in that geography are eligible for. And it could be very different from zip code to zip code or county to county or state to state as far as how much subsidy or how little subsidy people are actually getting. And so I don't really feel like we have a great line of sight into that until November 1st, when those subsidies all kind of get put into the system and we can start running some analysis for the clients that we serve. I think compounding those subsidy realities is the fact that many health insurance carriers are making plan changes and have been approved for significant rate increases next year on the raw base premiums. So here in Indiana, all 3 carriers that are going to be in the game next year, I think, uh, have been able to achieve 26 to 30% rate increases from the Department of Insurance. And I think in Michigan, we're in that 20% range as far as the raw premiums going up. So for some of these people, the combination of the premium going up by 26 or 30% and their potential enhanced subsidies being reduced, I mean, this could be like a double whammy for some people. I think there's the potential that some families will see increases of 300 or 400% on their health insurance premiums. So, a family paying $250 a month after the government subsidy today because of where their income falls, starting November or January 1st of next year, it could easily be $600, $700, $800 for that same family to have similar insurance next year. On top of that, a lot of the carriers are actually getting rid of some of their plans. So we've heard rumors. There's a call on Thursday with Better that they're going over their new plan designs and things for 2026. But they have kind of like announced on a preliminary basis that they're getting rid of their bronze plans, which that gives me some heartburn too, because we have a lot of clients on bronze plans and they're going to crosswalk those clients into other plans. But if bronze plans aren't available, what my head tells me is the next best option is a silver plan. Well, I promise you, a silver plan is more expensive than a bronze plan. So not only do you have this 26 to 30% rate increase and the potential of the government subsidies going down, but these clients also might be crosswalked into a plan that was going to be more expensive no matter what, just because it's a silver plan instead of a bronze plan. So it's just a lot that's going on here. I want to try to like educate you guys on this as much as I can over the next 2 weeks so that you're prepared to have an intelligent conversation with the clients that you serve. Ultimately, I think it's a matter of running the numbers and seeing where they land for that consumer. I don't think we have any ability to play games here. I think it's a matter of the numbers will be what they will be for that family. And then understanding what the creative alternatives are if the ACA options are no longer viable for that family. I do think we're going to have families where they look at the cheapest plan that's available to them and they're like, there's no way we can do that. Okay, if that's the reality, I think as their agent and their advisor, we need to be ready to pivot into other creative alternatives. And so I would say probably the most robust creative alternative is short-term insurance. Short-term insurance is real insurance. It gives them a true out-of-pocket maximum for a period of time. It covers anything new that comes up. But you got to understand what short-term insurance is and what it is not. Couple of things to understand about short-term insurance. First of all, people have to qualify medically to get into it. So if somebody's battling cancer or recently had a heart attack or potentially is diabetic, I mean, there's any number of knockout conditions that would prevent them from even getting the insurance. So if somebody has significant pre-existing conditions, the only place they can go and get those pre-existing conditions covered is an ACA compliant plan, through the marketplace or off exchange with the carrier. The only way they can get government subsidies is to go through the marketplace or on exchange or through the state carrier if it's a state that has a state exchange. I tell a lot of my clients there's a lot of reasons why consumers get pulled into marketplace plans. I'd say the two biggest ones are that's where their pre-existing conditions can be covered, and that's where they can get government subsidies. And that's the only place they can go for those two things, right? But for some people, that's not going to be viable, and we need to look elsewhere. A couple of other things about short-term insurance plans. It depends on what state you're in as to what length of time you can buy those plans for. So each state is a little bit different. I will say in the state of Indiana, you can buy short-term insurance anywhere from 1 month to 36 months. I think in Michigan now, it's 1 month to 6 months, correct? So I think the state of Michigan has limited it to 6 months total, which is a little difficult for those of you who live and work or those of us that sell in the state of Michigan, because it is possible to stack a short-term 6 month plan on top of another short-term 6 month plan to get somebody through a 12-month window. But you're also betting on the fact that that person will still be healthy when that first plan ends to be able to qualify for the second plan, right? So it's a little bit of a house of cards because if somebody goes on a 6 month short-term plan through July 1st, from January 1st to July 1st, and they have a heart attack or they develop cancer or some major health issue arises, thank God they've got coverage for that. But that coverage is going to end at 6 months, and then they have to be in a position where they can qualify for a new plan to get them through the next 6 months. And if they're sick, they won't be able to do that. So it is a little bit of a house of cards for those of you, those of us that live or work in the state of Michigan. In Indiana, you can do 12-month policies to bridge them through, and you can do up to a 3-year policy. These 3-year policies are called tri-term policies, and both Allstate and United Healthcare currently offer them. So in the states where you have 12-month or 36-month short-term plans, I think it is a viable option for people who can't afford an ACA plan and are pretty healthy. The other thing to understand about short-term insurance is that there are some other things it doesn't do. So it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions. So even if somebody can qualify to get on the plan, they may have a pre-existing condition that's not that bad, but it won't be covered by the plan. Some plans will pick it up after 12 months, but that first 12 months, there's a pre-existing condition clause where they say anything you've been treated for in the last year will not be covered on this plan for 12 months bare minimum. So you got to understand if people have, expensive medications that they're on, or they have other health issues going on that aren't that big of a deal, but have some expense associated with them. If you put them on a short-term plan, that is not going to be covered in the first 12 months. So that's important to understand. The other thing that I think is important to understand is that these short-term plans typically don't do a great job of covering preventative services like an ACA plan would. A few of them have, small benefits around preventative services, or in a tri-term in the second year, you might get some preventative benefits. but it's a couple $100. It's not like you have on an ACA plan where it's 100% coverage on all preventative services with no deductible and no copays, right? So if somebody's really interested in those heavy preventative services, they probably need to be seriously consider staying or going to an ACA plan. Um, Short-term plans are also not HSA approved. So if someone is trying to contribute money into a health savings account, they cannot do that in the months or years that they're on a short-term plan. I do see as you kind of crunch the numbers on it though, a lot of short-term plans will be roughly 50 or 60% of the cost of an unsubsidized ACA plan. So there is a time and a place for them. I kind of think about my healthy and wealthy clients. They don't have a lot of pre-existing conditions. They're not qualifying for much of a government subsidy. They're probably just worried about protecting themselves from catastrophic events moving forward. They don't have a lot behind them that they need to worry about. Short-term insurance could be, a viable option in those types of situations. I do think when you sell short-term insurance, though, you want to be careful. You want to make sure to fully disclose what it will and will not do, so that that consumer is prepared for the risk that they're assuming with that. I would also mention in the e-signature platform on the Resource Center, there is a short-term acknowledgement form that I would recommend you send to a client and have them initial and sign whenever they're buying a short-term insurance policy from any carrier. That is basically a cover your butt sheet. It's basically the client acknowledging, I understand it doesn't do this. I understand I'm not covered for pre-existing. I understand this. I understand this. I understand I'm not going to get government subsidies. So if a consumer ever comes back 6 or 12 months later and says, hey, Allison didn't fully explain this to me, that form would be the form to say, yes, we did talk about all this and you signed off acknowledging that you understood that. So short term could be viable. I will say most short term plans are pretty limited coverage on prescriptions as well. So as you look at the product brochures and kind of work your way through it, a lot of them have either discount programs or very little coverage for prescriptions. Um, that's usually not a huge deal though, because most people going into a short-term plan don't have significant prescription drug costs when they're buying the plan, or they wouldn't be able to qualify for it, or it'd be a pre-existing condition. So those would be things we need to talk about. So many times it's not, but they do need to understand that because somebody's on a short-term plan and they're put on a oral chemo medication that runs $20,000 a month. They're going to have a significant out-of-pocket cost. And so I do think when you're selling short-term insurance, backfilling their exposure with things like the Health Protector Guard and other supplemental insurance products can be a nice gap filler to build something out for them that might be less expensive than an unsubsidized ACA plan. So when I think about just comprehensive, nature of creative alternatives to the ACA, I think short term is probably the first thing that comes up. The other option that we've talked about a number of times, and there's trainings on the Territory YouTube channel about it now that you can go back and review, but it would be looking at the Health Protector Guard with United Healthcare or Golden Rule GRIC. The Health Protector Guard is a good indemnity product that will help offset a lot of their costs, or potentially the Med Mutual Protect product, which we also have YouTube trainings on as well. Both of those products can be used independently or in conjunction with each other to help a client who maybe doesn't qualify for a government subsidy or can't afford it, or somebody who maybe doesn't want a short-term plan for any number of reasons, or somebody that lives in the state of Michigan and needs to bridge through more than 6 months. A combination of the Health Protector Guard and the Med Mutual Protect products could be a very viable option as well. And so as I kind of think about that flow chart, I think we always got to check and see, like, is ACA going to be a viable option for them? How much subsidy? Do they have pre-existing conditions? This is why fact finding is so important on the front end of this. I think we got to walk through that and look at what the costs are going to be on that and explain to the client, what the pros and cons of an ACA plan are. If that's not a good alternative to them, then we've got to start pivoting to other lesser plans. And whether it's short-term insurance or Health Protector Guard or the Med Mutual Protect, all of those plans are lesser coverage than an ACA plan when it comes to the benefit levels and the maximum out of pockets and the total coverage that a consumer is going to have. I would say the far end of the spectrum, as far as creative alternatives, would be piecemealing together some guaranteed issue products. Sometimes clients can't afford full-blown insurance or anything close to it. That doesn't mean that they can't have a vision and dental policy or a guaranteed issue, accident-wise and a critical illness policy. Even putting together a $10,000 accident, a $10,000 critical guard, product on a guaranteed issue basis if they're sick, and loading some vision and dental on there. I mean, that's not going to be comprehensive coverage, and there's a lot of things that would not be covered in that type of a product. But I would argue that that level of coverage is probably better than going completely uncovered, right? And so I think sometimes you have to talk to people about that. And in many situations, it boils down to what is their budget and what can they afford to do. Just because they can't afford to drive a Mercedes Benz doesn't mean they shouldn't have a car, right? So I think those are all just thoughts that I've kind of had as we've gotten closer and closer to this OEP under 65 season. We've got a few minutes left. Do you guys have questions about any of that long commentary I just gave about the ACA, or thoughts or input or things that I need to put some more clarity around? You're welcome to unmute if you want.
And I think you answered this, that a question was raised, are all bronze plans going to be eligible for HSAs?
I didn't answer that today. I have answered it in the past. So my understanding is that all bronze plans and all catastrophic plans will be HSA compliant or HSA approved. So that's part of Trump's one big beautiful bill, is that regardless of benefit levels and things, the bronze and the catastrophic plans. I think they're even referring to those catastrophic plans as copper plans now. So
Mhm.
those are supposed to all be ACA approved so that people could do that.
And I think then the bronze plan names will probably change to reflect HSA eligible.
I'm sorry, to a what?
I think the bronze level plans, if they're going to all be eligible for HSA, their name, it'll probably be reflected in their name,
Oh,
the
sure.
name of
Yeah.
the plan.
Historically, I mean, I would expect that to be true too. Historically, if a plan is HSA approved, it usually has HSA like in the name of the plan. But who knows this year, guys? I mean,
Mhm.
that may be or may not be.
Yeah. Is the fixed indemnity consent form on the Resource Center the same we would use for like HPG or other indemnity plans?
Yes, and I would mention, thank you for that, Randy. So if you're selling an HPG or a MedMutual Protect, or some other combination of indemnity products, I would probably have that there's a sign off form. There's one for short term and there's one for fixed indemnity. It's called, I think, or
Mhm.
scheduled indemnity products, which would be kind of those other creative alternatives. But I think when you sell a short anything other than ACE, you got to have the ACA consent form signed for an ACA plan, right? That's kind of a different. But these other two are kind of for short-term insurance and for fixed indemnity. There are, documents on the Resource Center on the e-signature platform that you can very easily send out to your client and ask them to sign it. And again, document that, save it into their file, because if there's ever a complaint or they say you didn't explain to them what it didn't do, that kind of covers your butt on that. Other questions? Kate said, "Is there an easy way to get an AOR?" Are we talking in the under 65 space, Kate, or over 65?
Sorry, I'm on my phone, so it's hard for me to use my video. Yeah, either. I mean, I think for under 65, don't we have to call the marketplace? And then for over 65, we have to do, basically have them sign an AOR. But I just don't know how over the phone on a live transfer, how that would be quickly done, other than calling the marketplace.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a better option than calling the marketplace in that
Okay.
situation. So for the under 65, there's kind of two paths. You can do a three-way call with the marketplace, which you need to get well versed on that. Um, and then there is a second way through Health Sherpa, where you can send the consumer a link, but it's kind of confusing from the consumer side. So if they're not tech savvy, they can get bottled up in that pretty easily. So I think the easy button that most agents use is the three-way call with the marketplace, and just
And
explaining how that works. Now, on the Medicare side of things, you don't I guess you're not necessarily always trying to take over an AOR, and a lot of carriers in Medicare don't allow an agent of record change. They protect the original agent of record, which is a benefit too. For those of us who are the agent of record on existing business, they try to protect it. Not all carriers, each carrier has slightly different ways of doing it. I do know Priority Health up there does have a path and a form that you can fill out and send in that the consumer signs that makes you the AOR, but that takes some time to do. I think if you're taking Medicare live transfers, we're not necessarily trying to get the AOR in the moment. I think that would be more focused on the under 65 space. And I would really encourage everybody. Justin Wired is doing some great trainings every single week on taking live transfers in the under 65 space. And I would tell you, if you haven't done it yet or you haven't sat in on his, you should be sitting in and listening to Justin. He is very good on the phone. He has a very compliant process, and he can help answer questions around some of those things. So,
Hey,
Sandra?
hey, Silas.
Yeah.
So, oh, you're welcome, Kate. So during the ACA open enrollment period, if you're automatically helping somebody during the open enrollment period and they've previously worked with somebody else, is there still a need for them to do the three-way call to be agent of record?
I believe so. Right now, I've not heard anything counter to that.
Yeah,
So if there is an existing agent of record, I think you have to
yeah,
switch that agent of record to be able to, you can't
yeah.
just get a new application, is my
Yeah.
understanding.
In the
Now,
past, we could, but and I think the real key is when you do your eligibility notice, it'll tell you if you need to make a three-way call.
yes, it stops you.
So, there's a couple other questions. Will the MedMutual product ever be in Quote Connect, or will we always have to enroll these directly from the MedMutual website app?
It won't be in Quote Connect in the next 90 days. I know that.
Yeah,
I don't know about ever. That's a brand new product that we added just in the last couple of months. So in time, it may be. Um, Candidly, I could see if we get some traction with that product, I could see United Healthcare or Golden Rule rolling out a version of that product on their paper that would probably be better than that Med Mutual product. So there's the potential too that we may have a different carrier in the mix over time. This is kind of a test, to see if this product is viable, I think. So, and then Randy says, I have 365 clients from live transfers that I verified with an ACA agent. I'm AOR, but it does not show me as the AOR on Health Sherpa afterwards. So you called in verified with an
Can I
ACA.
chime in, Silas?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've done several AORs the past few weeks, and there's two different ways to do it. They can either authorize you on the account or you go through the whole application again, and that's the only way that you can become AOR.
But even when you're going through the application, you have to do a three-way call.
Correct. I'm just saying, when you do the three-way call, there sometimes, because I did the same thing, it didn't show up in Health Sherpa, but I was only authorized on the account. I wasn't the AOR.
I would say that is a distinctly different thing. When you call in to do a three-way call, like getting authorization to do the work on the application without them authorizing you on the account does not necessarily make you the agent of record. Is that what you're saying, Ray?
Yes,
Yes, I would.
correct.
And I don't know, Randy, if that's what you were dealing with, if you became authorized on the account, but didn't become the agent of record on the account.
Well, I've become the agent of record on the account and verified that. But when I go to that application and I ask the agent about this, because a banner comes across Health Sherpa it says something like CMS will not allow an agent of record change unless you are the agent on the current policy. So if I'm not the agent on the active current policy, they will not. They told me it's changed in their system, but it does not reflect back in Health Sherpa. I've done that 3 times now.
Is it showing up can you see the client in the carrier portal under you on your book of business?
Yes, but the agent of record is still the other agent.
Yeah, I had that same thing last week, but like I said, they didn't have me as the AOR. They just had me authorized on the account.
Yeah,
So
that's
I had to
not the
call
case.
back. I had to call back, go through the whole thing again, and then I became AOR.
Yeah, and Justin said that you got to go through the whole application and make the changes, but I didn't think we had to do that for a typical AOR change when we do a 3-way call.
You do.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah,
certain.
you do.
So if I don't go through the application or the agent doesn't, even though I am shown as the agent of record, it will not show me on Health Sherpa.
Correct.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I also think it's going to change a little bit. I think the dynamic, because the other thing that happens is some carriers don't allow an AOR change outside of open enrollment season. So once we get into next or week and a half from now, it's going to be a little bit more loosey-goosey and a little bit easier to become agent of record on whatever new transaction you're doing. And it's logical to do a new application because we're going to be recalibrating their subsidies and putting them into a new plan and going through all that. Where sometimes in the middle of the year, it's just not as logical of a process to complete a new application, to become the AOR. But you do have to push through the application to become the AOR, is my understanding on that.
So it's again, I don't want to belittle or belabor this, but I've gone through the application on my own afterwards when I've gotten consent and I'm by the marketplace agent's verbal response, of which I've noted in my Health Sherpa account that everything is fine. I've gone through the application. I did not enroll them in a plan or do anything like that. It still does not show me as the agent of record. So I clearly am doing something wrong if what you're saying is true.
Well, if you didn't exit, I mean, just going through the application, you've got to like finalize the application and
Right.
re-enroll
And
them.
yeah, and do an eligibility notice.
Okay, and then
And
enroll them
download
in the
that.
same plan, and then enroll them in the same plan they're in.
No, I didn't do that because in one case, I think that the subsidy changed slightly.
Okay.
But I don't
I do
remember.
think you have to execute the application, which would mean selecting a
Okay.
plan. It's not just
Okay.
going through the application and getting the eligibility summary. It's actually selecting the plan and enrolling them in that plan as their agent of record. Then it all clicks in.
Okay. Thank you.
That might be the extra stuff there.
Yeah.
And on some of those, it might be worth just waiting like 11 days and doing their renewal and then going through and just cleaning everything up and making sure you're the agent of record on that. Good questions, though. I appreciate you asking them. What other questions do you guys have? Anybody overwhelmed yet?
We're having fun.
I don't know about anything else. I can't change my own oil. I don't know anything else, but this is all I think and live and breathe right now. So hopefully we're getting questions answered. Justin is saying, yes, I have been.
Maybe he's been having
Yes, you
fun.
have been what, Justin?
Justin.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
There you go. Gotcha.
Oh, we got you, buddy.
Justin, do you have any other commentary? Because I know you do a lot of live transfers. Do you have any other input on becoming the agent of record or finalizing that?
He did his Medicare application too, so
Yep, I saw that.
he had a head full of
No,
hair 4
no, you
weeks
didn't,
ago.
Duke. No, you didn't, Duke. I saw you 6 weeks ago, and you didn't have one then either. So he's at the South Bend Clinic. Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
good. All right.
Staff in our South Bend Clinic. So, all right. Well, is there anything else I can answer for you guys this morning? I would just encourage you to continue to be a student of your business. If you see carrier ACA trainings going on, you should probably jump on those and start to understand the product. I would expect all those new plans to drop on what is that, Halloween night?
Yeah, it's usually,
31st.
yeah, October 31st, we'll probably see him.
We'll probably be able to see the plans and start crunching some numbers and looking at subsidies and seeing what's actually happening. And then watch the news too, because who knows, anything could happen between now and then.
Hey, Silas, a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Duke.
What happens if they drop plans October 31st? Things change in this whole government slowdown, shakedown, they restarted up. Is there a chance that they could redo all of those plans, or is it once they drop, it's a set deal?
I would say that, I mean, Congress can do whatever the hell they want, right?
Okay.
And so there is a chance that if they don't have things figured out by then, that it lingers on. And I mean, I don't even like to think down that rabbit hole, but I mean, there's a chance that we could be enrolling people in plans and making recommendations, and then a week or two later they come in and they say, hey, these government subsidies are back and we've got to kind of recalibrate things for people.
Yeah. So
But
just to know if there is any kind of change they have to make to a plan, it has to be approved by the government.
Well, and I would say too, we've dealt with some of this in the past. I mean, some of you didn't live the early years of the ACA, but those first couple of years, it was, I mean, we had a couple that first year in 2014 where we could not enroll people, like literally could not enroll them for the first like 3 weeks. So we were doing all the consultations, taking crazy good notes, just hoping that at some point we'd be able to submit applications for them. Finally, it started to work and we kind of got things pushed through, and the next year was almost as bad. So we've been there. I would say when legislative decisions significantly impact the flow of business, what I've historically seen happen is they extend the enrollment season, right? They give us
Mhm.
longer. And so I could see if all of this comes together that, and they, drastically change what is what is reality today, that that could get extended so that we have more time to clean things up. And who knows what else they might throw into the mix too. So, I keep going back to though, and I know you guys hear me say this a lot. Chaos and volatility does create opportunity. I think if this was simple and easy, consumers would not need us in either one of the markets that we work in. I think sometimes we're very resistant to the change and the chaos and the volatility in these markets. But I'll tell you, having done this half my lifetime, these are the opportunities where we can do an enormous land grab, help a lot of people, and make a lot of money in a very short period of time if we're in, if we're in a place to do that. And I think all of you have been licensed long enough, you've been trained long enough, you're doing this. Many of you have executed transactions now. You're going to get the hang of this. This is not rocket science. Trust your software. The software will tell us what we can and can't do from a subsidy perspective, and just do the best you can to help your clients feel comfortable, with what their options are. None of them are perfect. I mean, we've never had perfect options available to consumers at a perfect price. So it's a matter of just navigating what works for them. And I think if you can be their Sherpa, be their guide, help them navigate that, that's where you get honestly clients that begin to trust you. And today I have many clients who I start trying to explain things to them, and I mean, this happened half a dozen times in the last few weeks here where they're like, Silas, I don't care about any of that. Just tell me what to do. Like once you get to the point where they trust you, they're just looking for help and guidance. I'm the same way with my CPA. My CPA will try to explain something to me. I'm like, Aaron, I don't know and I don't care. Just what should I do? And he's like, do this. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm paying you for. That's what our clients are, engaging us on and needing from us. So
You
yeah,
are their health Sherpa.
they're Sherpa. Yeah,
Mm.
like right? So their health guide. Well, hey friends, I got to wrap up like 11:30 call I got to jump into. I hope this has been helpful. I know sometimes it's a lot of information, but we'll try to kind of post these on the YouTube channel as well. I'd encourage you to go back to that. If you have questions, reach out to your sales leader. That would be your first source of contact if you have questions around things. Certainly, you can escalate things to Sandra or myself if needed. But yeah, hope you have a great week. Take those live transfers and sit in on Justin's calls. I'll actually get those out here in just a moment. He's doing 2 sessions this week. So take care, everybody. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.